Hey everybody, welcome. Today is Wednesday. We're going to bring Aaron on here in just a second. Let me, here he comes. Dun, 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 dun. Yay, look at you. Hi, Aaron. Uh-oh, we got to get you unmuted.
There we go.
There we go. Well, let me just share a little bit about Aaron. Aaron, you were a 1995 graduate of the United States Military Academy out of West Point. Favorite place. You've got a master's in science and applied clinical nutrition from New York Chiropractic College. After a healthy scare at the age of 30, he started to explore a role in nutrition in building excellent health. That's led him to become certified as a nutritional educator through the National Institute of Whole Health. In addition, he completed and continues to maintain the most advanced level of training for nutritional response testing. Love it. During his time learning NRT, Aaron studied under the creator, Dr. Fred Uhlin, which other people know it as muscle testing. Aaron has been I've been a patient of Aaron since February of this year, and my family and friends and so forth. And so we've had some really great success with working with Aaron. And one of the things that we want to bring in now is to talk to him about brain fog and fatigue. I don't think, it's funny because Aaron, I talked to a gal today. Well, let me just say thank you for coming. Good to have you.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah. I was talking to a gal today, and it was interesting because she was telling me like, oh, I feel so emotional. I don't know what's wrong with me. And I'm like, oh, interesting. It's very, very interesting. So Aaron, how did you get into neutral response testing? I mean, we just heard about all these different certifications and studies and, your journey getting to this point, but what got you?
I have a visitor here. Let me just, here we go. All right, yeah. So I got into doing what I do through nutrition response at the age of 30. And my mother and she started working with someone who did nutrition response testing in Oswego, and she started getting better for the first time in her life. And so because of that, she started to learn what she needed to do and opened up her practice. And then around that time, I had a health scare where I wound up in the hospital because my adrenal glands essentially shut down, and my heart rate. They needed steroids to keep my heart rate up.
Oh my God.
So, yeah. So I was a combination. It's good we talk about mental health. A combination of physical stress and emotional stress at the same time, and poor eating habits, all came together at the same time. And as I was driving a vehicle, my vision began to narrow, and I began to have chest pains and a shortness of breath. And I pulled over, and luckily I had a friend with me, and passed out and wound up in the hospital after they jabbed me with lots of doses of adrenaline. And went to the hospital, and they thought I had a heart attack, which I didn't. And the only thing that they could tell me was that looks like your parasympathetic nervous system just kind of gave out. And that was all they told me. And I left the hospital with no knowledge as to why it happened, what happened exactly, how to fix it. And they let me have my McDonald's and cheeseburgers and Coca-Cola in the hospital while I was there for any meal I wanted. My friends just brought all the junk food over, and I ate it the whole time I was there. And it was only after I met someone after I actually started working with my sister, and I started figuring out that I was essentially pre-diabetic, my adrenal glands were shot, and they couldn't support my heart. That's why with the extra stress, I kind of just collapsed. And as I started to get healthier and healthier, then my mother started to become healthier and healthier as she started changing her eating habits. And once I really understood the connection between eating habits emotional health and physical health, then I figured, well, this looks like something I should be doing too, to help people out of the hole that I was in, because I was told virtually nothing when I left the hospital how to fix myself.
Yeah.
So if I continued on the same path, I would have the same issues, which is what happens to many people. And so over the years, it finally led to me starting nutritional whole health nutrition center 9 years ago, and all the way up to today.
You know, I can totally relate. I mean, I had what I had experienced at age 35 was something along the line of like having a heart attack, and I was rushed to the hospital. They couldn't find anything. They did a heart catheterization. They couldn't find anything. They still put me on medicine. You know, for what, I'm not really sure. But then when I had relocated from New Jersey to Pennsylvania, I had gone to a cardiologist here, and they had did some tests on me, your EKG and, ultrasound and things like that. And I remember the doctor saying to me, "Why are you here?" And I thought, well, I was told that I had to find a cardiologist. And he said, and it was a Chinese gentleman, he says, "You no problem, go home." And I thought, well, how could that be?
That's good.
Well, how could it be? But, I mean, I've learned a lot over the past 12 months, just, being in the presence of Aaron and working with him. One of the things that I had always thought I had was I was hypoglycemic, because I would always have, like, say, for instance, if I got up in the morning to have something to eat and I didn't eat, I would start to get the shakes at some point mid-morning, or if I tried to skip a meal, I would get the shakes. And one of the things that I learned with working with Aaron is that, that your adrenal system can give, if I'm not mistaken, and Aaron can quote me if I'm wrong, but can give you the same effects as if it was your pancreas, right? The sugar.
Mm-hmm. Yes, and so your adrenal glands and blood sugar handling. This will tie in nicely too with brain fog. Mm-hmm. Is that when your adrenal glands are your fight and flight part of your nervous system, or part of your body's physiology, in the sense that they're there to help give you energy when there's a stressful, when things are stressful, when you need more energy to do something. They get you up in the morning. They turn themselves down so you can go to sleep at night. They're like they're part of the gas pedal of your body, and if they're off, you don't really have that gas pedal anymore. So now you don't have that get up and go like you might have if they were working properly. So you can feel really sluggish. You can feel really, your brain will be physically sluggish and mentally sluggish. But you can also feel just like if you had low blood sugar, meaning you can start shaking between meals. You can start feeling extremely foggy and run down, which is what happens when people have low blood sugar. And you can also start feeling extremely irritable too. And those are similar symptoms to low blood sugar. But the fun thing about the human body is that you could have both at the same time. So they're masking each other. So you can have low blood sugar and underperforming adrenal glands, or you can have both, but they don't happen at the same time.
Yeah.
So one time it's more blood sugar, another time it's more adrenals. And so those can be hard to pinpoint when you have two or three things happening, particularly when blood sugar and adrenal glands mirror each other in terms of how you feel. Yeah. And a lot of people get stuck with one track. So they say, oh, it must be adrenal fatigue, and they forget about the blood sugar. Or it must be blood sugar, and they forget about the adrenals.
I don't think I ever hear people mention adrenal glands. I don't think I've ever had a doctor mention adrenal glands. Even like in all the years of like different allergy testing and blood work and checkups and everything else, I don't think I've ever heard a doctor mention anything about adrenal glands, which I am always fascinated, because it's like, from what I understand, like the general blood work that we go in for, they don't really test your adrenals. Right.
So normal blood work will not do anything related to your adrenal glands, but it does test your blood sugar, and so that's one thing that will get looked at first before adrenal support. or adrenal health is the blood sugar. So if the blood sugar shows or the person has symptoms of hypoglycemia, then it's much more likely that the doctor will look at that and ignore or just maybe forget about the adrenal part. And adrenals, when they're not functioning properly, can actually allow someone who normally wouldn't be hypoglycemic to become hypoglycemic. So if that person had good adrenal glands, there's a chance that they wouldn't be hypoglycemic, but because their adrenal glands are underperforming, now they're hypoglycemic, because adrenal glands do support correct blood sugar levels in the body. That's why people artificially help themselves with energy by drinking coffee in the morning. The coffee stimulates the adrenal glands, and the adrenal glands help the body to dump blood sugar into the body. So when someone's going through caffeine withdrawal, what they're really going through is a blood sugar withdrawal, because they don't have their caffeine to artificially support them in the morning. That's why most people who are addicted to coffee will say, don't talk to me until I've had 5 cups, because I'm going to be very irritable and I can't think, and they can't function until they get 1, 2, 3, 4 cups of coffee, and then they're set.
Yeah.
But that's where blood sugar and adrenal glands, that's another example of how they're linked.
But can the adrenal glands be the cause of all of those blood sugar feelings as well, and be 2 separate issues, like never even have a sugar problem?
Yes, so you can have simply underperforming or hypoadrenals and still have all the symptoms of low blood sugar. Because I've had clients come in and say, I feel like I have low blood sugar, but the doctor says I don't. And my blood work looks good, but I get low energy, I shake between meals, I shake when I'm stressed. Sometimes I have a hard time thinking when I go between meals. And so that mimics low blood sugar, but because of their adrenal glands are underperforming, they're not able to go too far between meals before they start feeling what would be considered low blood sugar issues, even though it's because the adrenal glands can't support them. And that's why someone might be kind of lost with their blood work. If the blood work looks good, the doctor can't find anything, there's no diseases, they've gone through everything, but the adrenal glands would be overlooked. And therefore they're just kind of lost, because they say, I don't feel good, but my blood work looks good. So what do I do? And that's more frequent than I think is realized.
Yeah. What do they have to do to test the adrenals? At what point does a doctor, because I mean, that's like a whole separate test in itself.
Right. So some doctors, there are some doctors who would figure that out, and others you would have to talk to them about doing a cortisol test. And usually you can do a saliva test. Unfortunately, you can't do that unless it's been changed recently in the state of New York. You have to go to Pennsylvania to do a saliva test. That's one of the main tests that they can do. There's other specific blood work tests that they can order as well that look at cortisol levels in the body to see if your adrenal glands are actually producing like they should. But you have to ask, usually you're going to have to ask for them and advocate for yourself to say, listen, everything else has been looked at, let's look at my adrenal glands.
Well, but what sucks is it's like you, the client, are asking the doctor instead of the doctor, and that goes back to like, you have to have as much knowledge yourself to know what kind of questions to ask in order to really get the proper help today, it seems like.
Frequently, that's the case in that now I would say most doctors, not all, because if you're lucky enough and you have the right general practitioner or the right endocrinologist, they'll be able to figure this out. But most doctors will not look much further than the blood work, and they might suspect something in terms of your endocrine system, like the adrenal glands, and so they'll refer you to a specialist. And if that specialist knows what they're doing, they'll do the right test. But unfortunately, the problem with some of the testing is you won't always find the problem with the adrenals is that they can still show like they're looking pretty good, but from time to time not doing as well as they should. So same thing for thyroid. You can go and get your thyroid tested, and the numbers look pretty good, but that may not translate into the fact that the thyroid's actually functioning like it should. So it's kind of like somebody who is essentially, let's say, overworked and pushing really hard, and they really don't have a lot of energy, but they're able to fake it pretty good throughout the day. And when they get home, they collapse. So your organs can kind of fake it for a while in terms of the numbers still look good. And so the endocrinologist will say, well, no, your adrenals look good, but there's something more fundamental that is hiding underneath that might not show up with just looking at the numbers.
Yeah.
And that's where, for example, nutrition response testing helps me figure that out in terms of, hey, they come in, your thyroid numbers look great, but let's test that thyroid and see if it's actually testing well. And more often than not, it's not testing well.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So now, how do you tell us a little bit about the muscle testing? So people can have this brain fog and it's real.
Right.
It's not, so, a lot of times I think people just think that brain fog is just a common situation because you're overworked, and the best way that it just goes away is that, just rest and you'll be okay. But the reality of it is, I think, is that brain fog, in a sense, or fatigue is actually a real problem.
Right. So that's actually, you might not realize it, Gina, but you have in that short statement, there's about 20 things I can talk about. So I'll go through some, and then I'll explain the nutrition response testing a little bit, and then we can come back to the other things.
Okay.
But one of the, and this is true for brain fog or any other emotional component of the body or anything related to the mind, whether it's a kid or adult, is when it comes to the brain and things that deal with the mind, for some reason, the rules of nutrition for doctors and for people too is that it goes out the window because it has to do with the mind, and that means maybe you're causing it yourself, or you're thinking incorrectly, or it's just stress and that, or it's things like that. But the mind, the brain, is just like the heart and the liver. So if the brain doesn't have the right nutrition and it's not getting the right support from the other glands, it's not going to function. So there's a real physiological reason why someone would have brain fog that could be happening at the same time as an environmental thing like chronic stress, work environment, home environment, poor sleep habits that are compounding the physical weakness, nutritional weakness of the brain. Mm-hmm. So if someone has underperforming thyroid, a common symptom is brain fog. Mm. And so it's not the brain at this moment that may have all the issues, it's actually further down. So you have the thyroid. So a lot of people who have hypothyroidism, one of their main complaints is inability to think quickly or retain information, or they don't feel like they're really moving through the day. It just feels like they have a chain attached to them. It's just very lethargic mentally. And so with the nutrition response testing, if someone comes, that's a chronic, the three biggest things I hear are chronic fatigue, brain fog, and digestive issues. Those are the top three. And usually, for almost every female coming in, will have two of those three, if not all three of them. And so if someone comes in and they say I have chronic fatigue and brain fog, and they have some other issues as well, one of the things that we'll do is go through and check each organ and gland with nutrition response testing. And so what that means is it's a little bit like acupuncture, in the sense that we put pressure on each area of the body that has an organ, and organs are essentially connected to the surface of the skin with nerve fibers. And so these little areas are called dermatomes. And so if you press over the area of the liver or of the thyroid, the thyroid will register the pressure that you're placing on top of it when you press over the thyroid. So if the thyroid, in this example, or the adrenals are really healthy and doing well, and you put that extra pressure on them, it's not too much stress. And so the thyroid will react strongly. If the area is under stress, like someone who has hypothyroid issues, you put extra pressure on the thyroid, it's like a little bit of an overload, and the thyroid will show to be weak. And therefore, as I go through, if I put pressure on the thyroid and the thyroid's weak, I know I should be addressing the thyroid. But as I go through, we might have 1 to 10 organs show up. And so part of the process is to work systematically instead of chasing symptoms. We use nutrition response testing to find the fundamental problem and handle that organ first, and then the next in line, and then the next in line, and so forth. And that's where, with the nutrition response testing, you can work in certain areas that you can't do with traditional medicine, because if it's not in the blood work, most times it can't be addressed. If the doctor scope or does a scan or an ultrasound and nothing shows up in the organ, there's not a whole lot they can do. But with nutrition response testing, if I know it's weak, I can start addressing it nutritionally with food, and then also the whole food supplements that I use, and start repairing the tissue of that organ. And frequently, before a symptom or anything shows up in the blood work, the organ itself is under I call it distress, so it's dysfunctional, but it's not dysfunctional enough that it's going to show up in the blood work. It's not dysfunctional enough that ultrasound is going to say, hey, look, your thyroid is inflamed. It's it's larger than it should be. Those are things that happen when the organ has begun to lose control of its ability to stay healthy. So when a client comes in and there's nothing showing up anywhere, I'm able to find out more about what's going on. Even if they come in and their blood work is off and the scan is showing something, you still want to work systematically. Just because the thyroid numbers are off doesn't mean it's the thyroid's fault. It could be the adrenal glands have checked out, and the thyroid was working for 2 glands now, and it burned out. So your adrenals burned out, then your thyroid burned out, and now you have brain fog and you can't think anymore. And the least little bit of stress sends you off into changes your personality, and you really can't handle stress anymore. And that's the person, just the least little thing, they'll fly off the handle.
Yeah.
They've lost the ability to handle stress because their stress handling glands have checked out.
Mm-hmm.
And so that's where nutrition response testing can fill the gaps in, but also work well with conventional medicine, meaning if someone's blood work is off, we know as we work with the thyroid, as the numbers get better, that's one additional indicator that the thyroid is healing.
Yeah, but in my case, Aaron, my adrenals have been off and my blood work's been fine. So when I've gone and I've done my blood work, I'm perfect, spot on. Yeah. But the reality of it is that I knew I was on like borderline hypoglycemic, even though it would never show up in my blood work. But there were times when I thought I was going to pass out. God forbid I didn't, I tried to skip a meal. I knew that I had different emotional highs and lows. I had different weight gain and loss. And like every time they tested me for different things, everything was fine.
And that's because your adrenal glands were not in a disease state, they were dysfunctional. And so if you went between meals and your blood sugar just dipped down a little bit, which would be normal for anybody, you had no support from the adrenal glands to handle your transition between meals. And so, a common thing that happens when the adrenal glands are not up to par is that if you go too far between meals or you do a little too much activity, a common thing is dizziness and fainting, particularly upon movement or standing. or you're just sitting there and all of a sudden things might start to spin and you're feeling really clammy and sweaty.
Mhm.
And that could be misinterpreted as pure blood sugar issues, but frequently it's more adrenal before the low blood sugar. And you go to the doctor and they say you're fine, you must be crazy because none of this is showing up. So where are you getting these symptoms from? Which is unfortunately what uh, women are more so than men are told when they go to the doctor is that, listen, this is in your head. It's just too much stress. Here, take a, maybe frequently they'll be giving a medication like a antidepressant or yeah, just to calm down.
Yeah. And so I just want to make sure that I'm understanding you right. So the brain fog, we already said it's real, but it's
Right.
because of the different organs in our body not functioning properly, because it's not getting the nutrition that it needs. It's then causing the brain to, so it's not a matter of really overworking.
No, but it could, but overworking can be a factor.
Yeah.
Or it could be the straw that breaks the camel's back, where all you need, that person was going along and they were handling things with a certain level of stress, and all of a sudden the stress ramped up, but the adrenal glands and thyroid and other stress handling glands weren't really that strong anyway. So it just took an extra level of stress and it sends them into a tailspin.
Mm-hmm.
But technically, it really wasn't that stress. It was the weakness of their organs and glands, which is usually compounded by chronic stress, poor sleeping habits, and poor diet. That's usually the top three that add up together to weaken somebody.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Why don't we take a couple minutes? We've got a couple people here with us and see if we have some questions. I'd be curious to see what Connie, I could tell like Connie's wheels have been spinning. Connie, unmute yourself, babe.
Oh, I can't.
We can't hear you. You're unmuted, but we have no voice.
Hear me now?
Oh, there we go.
Oh, okay. I just clicked it again.
Now, Aaron, let me just say that Connie Fife is one of those really high achievers.
Thanks, Gina. Let's see, where do I go? For years, but what you've been talking about for years, I've always been told I had a low blood sugar.
Yeah, see?
And started going to a naturopathic doctor in California, and was really on that path to getting it taken care of, getting it cleared up, because for years it was, I either had allergies to mostly everything, I was told. I do get migraines, and also it was called low IgG. So I was getting some nutrients, and for about 2 years, I was working with a doctor where I had to do shots in my stomach, and it was like there would be 6 shots, and it would be like a slow IV. So I typically would pick my favorite movie and sit for 2 hours until we went through, that whole process.
Wow.
And so then when I found the naturopathic doctor in Orange County, he was like, okay, let's get you off everything. And which we did. And I really went to a very organic diet, almost to where I was vegan type of diet. And so, I mean, I suffered for that since a teenager. I always suffered and had a lot of those symptoms, but nobody can or was able to really figure out what it was. And I used to get frustrated and say, if somebody would just tell me what it is, then I could deal with it, but I never knew what it was. Again, between the headaches, between feeling that dizziness, and having to make sure I would eat a cracker or something in between. And then even to the point where when I was doing that nutritional IV regimen, I was also, they had me on steroids as well.
Oh, and those things make the adrenals stress the adrenal glands out, the steroids.
Wow.
So when it did that, you got the weight gain and everything that went with it. So I was on that path. And like I
Right.
said, working with Dr. Charlie, and we were really clearing a lot of that out. Moved back to Pennsylvania in November of 19 and haven't been as good following, what he had me working on. So yes, but like I said, but I've dealt with that pretty much, like I said, since a teenager.
Teenager.
Wow.
Yeah.
And
So
we
it's
won't say how old you are.
Yeah, I'm only 22, so it's not that long.
only 3 years. That's not bad. Are you, has the situation been resolved for the most part, or are you in good, is it mostly handled?
For the most part, I
Good.
would say yes, yeah. For the most part, I mean, I'm on no medication now except for Imitrex for the migraines, and then I do an inhaler every day for the asthma because that had developed through that about. Geez, Jeannie, had me doing my whole medical history here. So I'm going to say that was
Keep it
probably
clean, please. Keep it clean.
9 years ago. I actually lost my voice for about 6 months.
Mm,
So that's when I was speaking and constantly going, and on airplanes, and I just lost my voice. And so, no, it wasn't that long, 6 years, because that's what moved me to start the agency. And I lost my voice. I went to doctor to doctor to doctor to doctor, just trying to figure out my voice, and just kept saying I had laryngitis. We couldn't do anything. So that's when I finally found Dr. Charlie and said,
good.
let's get you off everything. Let's do a total cleanse, and then we'll start building from there.
That's is the right idea. And so, unfortunately, so you would be, as a description, I was talking with Gina about is everyone's so focused on the blood sugar part, they forgot other components up until you met the naturopath.
Hmm.
And he said, okay, let's look at the body as a whole rather than just simple symptoms or just one specific area. And so your adrenal glands, essentially, it sounds like since your teenage years, have not been up to their high level of function like they should. And
Hmm.
then with your level of activity, they never could really catch up until you were able to do the things you did. And it
Hmm.
sounds like for the most part, it's been handled quite well.
Yeah, he did three areas: the emotional, the physical, biological. Was it? I always forget the third component. But yeah, he focused on the three aspects, the three parts of the body.
Yeah.
So through the science that he had done. So yeah, I definitely started feeling better at it. I know I could still be better at it. But yeah, but that's something that I've suffered, like I said, for a really, really long time.
And that's good because now you can tell people who might say similar things about their health is say, well, have they checked this out yet?
Right, right.
Well, and one of the things I want to comment, because we've got two people on the line that I both know have had problems with migraines, Connie being one of them. But I'm curious, Cassandra, since you've started seeing Erin, how's your migraines? Because I haven't heard you complain about them at all.
I think since I've started with Erin's, I've gotten maybe 3, and that's over months, where I was getting like 5 to 6 a week. So
And I wish I had your folder here so I could say exactly how we started it. But
yeah,
you remember, was it your adrenal glands or your liver?
my adrenal glands and liver.
Liver. Okay, good. I have some
Yep.
memory. And,
Yes, both.
and so frequently with migraines, the adrenal glands are going to play a major part in reducing them because of how they change the body's physiology. Because if they're off, the blood vessels can constrict, and that, then you get that migraine. And when the when the adrenal glands are functioning well and the gas pedal in the body and the brake pedal in the body are working evenly, frequently you can, like with you, Cassandra, you can, and like what would happen with you, Connie, is that you can get the body to be at a much more even keel, and therefore the blood vessels will be won't constrict, and therefore you can reduce or eliminate the migraines. And that's something that also gets overlooked. Of course, when you have a migraine, your ability to think goes to zero.
Right.
Talk about
Minus zero.
minus zero.
Connie, how often do you get your migraines? Because I know for a while there was quite often.
Yeah, it was. I've been really watching them now. I mean, I will still get them, and I'll say I'll feel one trigger right now, maybe once a week still. And I'll feel a trigger, and soon, I'll grab the Imitrex, I'll drink a gallon of water, and like that one commercial that's out, she sticks her head in the freezer. I can relate to that when the migraine hits. So yeah, so still about once a week, I still get them.
Yeah. So, Erin, are you thinking that still that's coming off of that would be something that would be coming off the adrenal glands?
Well, what I would do in a case like that, because there's been a lot of improvement, would be to, well, do the nutrition response and of course, check out everything, but also go through the diet and make sure there's nothing in the diet that would increase inflammation in the body, and make sure there's enough types of food in there that decrease inflammation in the body. And before we could say for sure if the last bit of the migraine is still adrenal. The other could be, like with Cassandra, it could also be the last little bit could be dealing with the liver. And the liver, because the liver is a big part of migraines, but also things like asthma, allergies. So those things that are still might be lingering could be more tied to the liver. Because your adrenal glands might have been handled pretty well from all the work that you did. Or it could be both just need a little tweaking. It could be anything like that. But frequently when clients come in, when they describe that they have migraines, almost always their adrenal glands and or liver don't test well. And then you got to fix those and clean them up. And what's interesting, if going back to things that are real with brain fog, is that the more congested the liver is, the more a person deals with allergy type symptoms or things of that nature, the more likely they are to have brain fog. If anyone's subjected to seasonal allergies, you're not going to think too well in the fall.
God, he's like got your book. He just like, this is the Connie Fife book.
Yeah.
Oh. So that's another thing with brain fog is how the liver functions, because if your liver is congested and your sinuses are congested, technically your brain is going to feel congested, and you really can't, most people can't think nearly as well as they like, and some people can't think at all because all they can think about is how congested they are and how agitated they feel. And so when you clean up the liver, you clean up the sinuses, because the sinuses are like the escape hatch for liver and kidneys that can't detoxify. So if they're struggling, it comes up through the sinuses. So if you clean up the liver, in this case, then you clean up the sinuses, and then the brain comes back online, and you go, oh, all right, I can think again, and you don't have to dread, here comes spring, here comes fall, here comes spring. Because I'll have some clients that say every fall it's always the same, like clockwork. And once we get them on the correct eating pattern and clean up their liver, and usually their adrenal glands, their liver, and their gut are going to be the big three, meaning their gut flora, the health of their digestive system. The next fall, they come in and say, hey, it hasn't been too bad. I haven't needed to do this. I can breathe, I can think, I've been able to go out and exercise, I can play with the dog, things like that they used to take for granted, but couldn't do for years.
Yeah.
But that's a big way on the brain.
I want you to talk to Lisa for a moment. She's fallen asleep over there. She's got a really interesting situation. Talk about fatigue. Women, women get tired at this time of day, Erin.
Around 6:40.
For her, it's earlier.
It's only 4. I'm
Oh, okay.
She's on the
everybody just got home here, so
she's on the
that's why I've been
afternoon
in and out.
fatigue. Lisa, tell, and I remember not too long ago, I said to you, gosh, I wish you'd reach out to Erin before you do anything, but Lisa actually just had a procedure. Lisa, share a little bit about what's going on with you. I'd love to hear what Erin has to say about this.
Oh my God, how much time do you have? My medical history is long and complicated. I actually had Hodgkin's lymphoma 17 years ago. So I went through chemo. 12 straight weeks, and then I did 25 radiation sessions to my chest and my lower neck. I did not know that losing your voice is a very good sign of acid reflux. My voice has been this way for a very long time, but it got so bad last August that I actually lost it completely. My doctor said, hey, this kind of sounds like you might have acid reflux. Let's try this. Well, after being on a PPI, then my voice came back. So I was like, awesome. What's the cause of this? So he, of course, gave me that glossy eyed look because I'm a big person about finding causes. After I did, just to note here, after I did go through chemo, about 6 years after I was so bad, I ended up going to a naturopath, and my gut was out of control from the chemo. It was just horrible. So we spent a lot of time getting that in check, and things were good for a while, and then everything just went crazy. I have had bariatric surgery, so that does throw a little wrench in everything. So that's why I did have the procedure, to make sure that nothing internal was haywire, incorrect, not connected, whatever. So I did have I had an endoscope, whatever, yesterday, but they inserted what's it called? The Bravo. Sorry, I had to look at the stupid thing I have to carry. I didn't even know the name of it. But they inserted the Bravo just to test the acid, to see kind of where it's coming from when I generally get the acid reflux. I'm not entirely sure what they're all testing, but that's kind of my understanding of it.
Okay.
And I know my adrenals are whacked because my stress is through the roof. So I'm sitting here like, that is like the one word I have written like 4 times. I'm like, maybe we should check your adrenals.
That would be a case history that would require probably extra time to go over, but it sounds like right now, so are you still dealing with the acid reflux?
Very badly. Yeah.
And you said you had the bariatric surgery, but did it get worse or stay the same after the surgery?
I had new symptoms. Let's put it that way. I know it was silent. They're telling me it was silent GERD beforehand, and the new symptoms are sometimes I wake up in the middle of the night and I'm choking. I cough all the time.
Yeah, it comes up.
Yeah.
Okay.
And I have fluid in my ears all the time, which I did not know that is also a sign of acid reflux. Because I would go and I'd constantly be like, I can't hear, something's wrong. Like my ears are ringing. I feel like I'm plugged up, and they're like, we have fluid in your ears. Just take a Sudafed. I'm like, no, that's not the answer here.
And so you're kind of like, in the sense like Connie, looking for answers, and the answers were being given to you in terms of that one specific symptom. So let's just concentrate on that until Connie came across someone who said, okay, let's look at everything. So right now it seems like you're in the stage where people are looking at a lot of individual things, and that can be frustrating because one thing in what I do with the saying that we have is that anything in the body can cause anything. So just because a symptom is, let's say, in the stomach, or appears to be in the stomach, doesn't mean it has to do really with the stomach. It could have to do with something else. I've had clients where they've had severe heartburn and GERD, and it turned out to be their gallbladder or liver that needed to be addressed. And once that was addressed, their bloating or heartburn went away. So I don't know, might be a good idea if they have it, to have someone take a look at, do a scan and just make sure that the gallbladder is not full of stones, just a little check mark, because you can have all sorts of digestive distress that appear to be just the stomach, but because the liver or the gallbladder are not functioning well, you'll have those symptoms. And until that's handled, you can do everything and anything in the world for the stomach, and nothing will change because it's not the stomach's fault. It's
Right.
the liver or the gallbladder. So that's part of, that anything can cause anything in the body. And part of that too is, you had a lot of radiation and chemo, and that is very difficult on the liver. So who knows what was done in terms of the liver's health that may have accumulated since all of that was done, that is catching up now with how you're feeling. And so if they keep chasing the stomach, they might miss the liver gallbladder. The other thing too, when I hear brain fog or those types of digestive issues or any kind of thing like that, is make sure the diet has to be spot on, meaning, and everyone loves it when I say this, no sugar, no processed grains, no additives, no preservatives. And then some people usually say at the end of that, no fun too. But in addition, with that type of digestive distress, your food should be smoothies, soups, stews. Everything should be pre-cooked in a fashion that's easy to digest. So instead of eating raw vegetables, all the vegetables should be cooked in like a soup or a stew. Instead of eating meat that cooked, it should be cooked in a soup or stew, because it's tremendously easier to digest those foods than to eat it how we normally would eat them. And that could take a lot of stress off the digestive system, which, if it doesn't handle the heartburn or the GERD completely, it should at least take the edge off of it and allow you to feel more comfortable throughout the day. It's also going to take a lot of stress off the liver. So chronic digestive issues, the food should be very, very, I call them, pureed, mushed, squished, sauteed, anything but raw, and meats when they're cooked should be in a soup or stew, so they kind of just melt in your mouth type of thing.
Easy to digest. Aaron,
Yeah.
Just a thought that I had. If someone has acid reflux, I know a lot of times people think they have too much acidity in their body, and so they'll stop eating acidic foods. Some rumor has it that that's not always the case, that it's usually because there's not enough acid in their system.
So that's part of the problem, is frequently it's the reverse of what's thought. So when a person, if it's strictly the stomach, more often than not, it's the fact that the food is essentially putrefying in the stomach and in the small intestine, because the body's not able to digest it properly because there's not enough acid in the stomach. And so the acid that's being kicked up is from the food. And so if you take a Tums, or you take, I don't know, the purple pill, something like that, you cover the symptom, but the cause of not enough acid is still there. So you have to keep taking it, and then you get stuck in that loop, because if you don't take it, the acid kicks up. And if you do take it, you feel better, but you're making the situation worse because you're keeping the acid in your stomach lower. So the solution to get out of that is the dietary changes that I mentioned earlier. And therefore you won't need the Tums or the Nexium or anything like that for the acid reflux. Now, if it's coming from the liver, because the liver gallbladder, again, it's still a symptomatic improved way to help, which is okay to take the edge off until you fix the problem. but ultimately you'll be stuck in that pattern of taking an anti-acid type of medication, which will only make your digestion worse over time. And on top of that, the longer you take anti-acid medications for women in particular, the harder it is for your body to properly absorb calcium. And so that goes towards, of course, bone health. So it's okay to take them for a short time to get yourself out of the hole and to get the symptoms to where they're manageable. But if the diet change isn't there or the organ isn't addressed properly, then you'll be stuck in that loop. And so, but those are ways that you can get out of it. And so if it's a gallbladder issue, the gallbladder should be helped. If it's a liver issue, the liver should be helped. Or it could be, the fun part is it could be all three: stomach, liver, and gallbladder, which just means there's just more work to be done.
Yeah.
And chemotherapy is notorious for making the digestive system struggle, and not just for the time that you take it, but for years and years and years afterwards.
And Aaron, I can just comment because I know that one of the other clients that I had sent to you, Mike, he was someone else that had some chemo, but how long does that chemo stay in your system that the chemicals affect your body once you've had it?
Well, that's an interesting question. I know that each chemo has its own, I guess, half-life, they call it, the length of time it'll stay in the body. But the problem is, of course, it's a poison. Mm-hmm. So even though it's technically out of the body, the damage that it's causing could take weeks to months, years to actually show up because of what it's done at the cellular level of the organ. So for example, I have a client who was given, he has a certain type of cancer, and he was given a heavy chemo while we were working together. So unfortunately, when it comes to that, I can't say, no, doctor, don't do that. So that he was given a heavy medication or chemotherapy treatment that he stopped months ago. But what happened now is his kidney is reaching kidney failure, and it's due to the chemotherapy that he was given before. So the cure was worse than the solution. So that's what I mean with chemotherapy is even though you're done, it could be affecting your health for years to come. And it's because of the damage it does at the cellular level. So if it damages the cell, the next cell that damaged cell produces is going to be damaged too. And then the next one is damaged until the body can correct the damage that happens in the DNA of the cell, which may never happen or may take a long time to happen.
Yeah.
And that's why multiple symptoms can show up years later or show up soon after chemotherapy, but not improve or get worse. Yeah. And it sounds like that makes sense to you, Lisa.
Oh, I've been doing it for years. I think I was a doctor in a former life, but I've told everybody that I swear that the chemo damaged my DNA.
That's what it can do. Yeah,
and I mean, 3 years out, I was getting bronchitis 7-8 times a year, and I had a nurse tell me, she goes, I don't know what your problem is. Radiation doesn't do that. And I looked at her and I go, I think you need to go back to med school.
Yeah.
And she was like, and I'm like, sorry, I'll leave.
I'm surprised because radiation changes your DNA, damages it.
Yeah.
And you had two things that would be very hard on the body. So I guess that gives you an idea of what other things to consider and to look at. But coming from the nutrition aspect, is the diet really has to be spot on, meaning you can't say, well, I did well for a week, I'll treat myself today, or I come home and I'm feeling really stressed, look at these yummy cookies or whatever it is, or I'll just go out and get some fast food. That'll keep short-circuiting your progress. So it has to be long-term consistent.
Well, and I can contest to that. This weekend was my husband's birthday, and I had family up. And I ate cheese and crackers, and I finally gave in to have a small glass of Bailey's. But just between the cheese and the crackers, I've had, they tasted so good on my taste buds, right? I love cheese. I can have any kind of cheese. I love it. But let me tell you, I have had 2 days. I like called, message Aaron like in a frantic this morning. I'm emotional. I feel terrible. I can't poop. I like this laundry list. And he's like, well, those are the joys of, like eating all of this stuff that tastes good in the moment. But it's amazing how long it wreaks havoc on your system. Like literally a couple of days, like it completely screwed my system up.
Right. And of course, in terms of brain function, your second brain is all upset. So now your first brain is not functioning like it should.
Yeah.
So a lot of times when a person has digestive distress, whether it's gas, bloating, constipation being a big one, the brain is not going to be functioning like it should, because you'll be, one, focusing on those issues, and two, those types of things actually make a person sluggish. So if you're constipated, there's a very good chance brain-wise you're going to be sluggish. And then as the longer you're constipated, the more irritable and a person will get, and the more lethargic. And so
yeah, it's kind of like the whole plumbing system has to keep working, and if it's not working, then now all of a sudden we've got the fog and we've got the fatigue. But the interesting thing is that I think a lot of people, and maybe everyone here can contest to it, but like when you're foggy or you're fatigued, you just take into consideration, oh, I've worked too hard.
Which, yeah, because that's generally what we're told is in the U.S. is that if you're fatigued or foggy, it's more you.
Yeah.
Because you're working too hard, you're doing this too much, or you're letting things affect you too much, which that could be a part of the problem for sure. But then, well, what are you eating? What's your thyroid like? What's your adrenal like? Do you actually go to the bathroom once, have a bowel movement 1 or 2 times a day? Those questions are things that physicians used to ask before it became so easy to prescribe medications. So a lot of things I do in the office are what doctors used to do. And if you get a good doctor, and if you don't, these are the questions he or she will ask you is, do you poop? Do you bloat? What's your energy like during the day? When are you fatigued? Are you have problems in the morning, in the afternoon? Can you sleep? If you sleep, do you keep waking up? Those are things to figure out which organs and glands are struggling, and then to kind of put a whole person picture together. And those are all things that affect a person's health. Yeah. So if someone keeps waking up at night because your adrenal glands keep going through an up and down cycle, when they wake up in the morning, they're going to feel awful, and then fatigued, and then brain fog all day long. And then the likelihood of eating sugary foods to push them through the day and using caffeine increases, which then makes the cycle even worse. And then that person could be trapped in that cycle for years to come, until someone, either they figure it out or someone pulls them to the side and says, no, this is why you're doing all that.
Which leads me into the next person, Cassandra. And it's interesting because I know that, Cassandra started to work with you only a couple months ago, and her biggest complaint was migraines. And I remember, I just knew how often she was struggling with it, and it was absolutely terrible. I remember begging her, she was going to the doctor. I'm like, please, no, don't go. And she did. She went, and they gave her this huge bottle, right, Cassandra?
Yeah, they wanted me to take Topamax and like 2 other things.
And I was like, whatever you do, just please will you listen to me before you start taking any of that medicine, go to see Aaron.
I did.
Yeah. But life is like a blooming onion. It's the same thing in coaching, whether, like when you're growing, there's layers that you go through, and Aaron kind of goes through those layers. As your body begins to heal, other things start to show up. And so, Cassandra, you've talked recently about other things starting to show up. What's showing up for you?
I think my anxiety is really bad again, which that was a bad thing in the beginning too. And it got a lot better. But recently, I'm not like as anxious before. I almost feel like blah, like I just feel off, and I don't know. exactly what it is. I'm just assuming my anxiety, but
And those are things that it could be multiple things. Like if the adrenals have, because I haven't. It's been a little while since I saw.
It's okay. She's
Yes.
coming Friday.
there,
Excellent.
it was
So
like couple months of just like everything adding up.
So it could be, so there's generally several layers in terms, and this goes to brain function. But when someone is irritable, anxious, depressed,
Mhm.
ADD, ADHD, feeling blah, doesn't have to be, technically depressed, feeling lethargic, unmotivated. There could be several things running together at the same time. And when they go all low, you'll feel your worst, and when they're all kind of doing better at the same time, you'll be feeling better, but the cycle keeps going up like a roller coaster. So one of them is blood sugar levels, just in terms of diet, meaning if you eat a meal that's higher in blood sugar or higher in carbohydrates and sugar, your blood sugar will spike up, and then it has nowhere to go but down. And that's where a person will feel irritable and tired, lethargic, wants more sugar. But at the same time, running together would be the health of your adrenals and thyroid um, to withstand the daily activities that you're going through. So if your blood sugar kind of goes down and your adrenals are kind of going through a low cycle, you could feel really like, I can't even get up in the morning, or I can't think later in the day. And then on top of that, those two, your adrenals and your blood sugar, affect your hormones. And so they could be pulling your hormones all over the place. And so the hormones are out of whack because the blood sugar and the adrenals are out of whack, or whatever the scenario is, who's to blame. But they each affect each other. So, for example, if someone, for example, in this case, a woman is coming in and says that she has horrible symptoms during her cycle, and then I see in her food journal that she's eating a lot of processed food, and then her adrenals or thyroid show up, and usually her ovaries too, we've got like 4 things that are all working against her. And if we can fix them, starting with diet, then the person starts to feel more calm, more centered, usually can go through the cycle much easier. And because they're more centered and they can think clearer, and because the hormones aren't going like a roller coaster, the blood sugar isn't going like a roller coaster, which allows a person to think much, much clearer. So even if all the stress is still coming at you, you can handle it better because you're stronger internally, both physically and mentally. So maybe the stressors haven't gone away, but they don't seem as stressful as they used to. Kind of the example I use is if you have a couple nights of bad sleep, pretty much anything can get on your nerves. But if you have really good sleep, you can go through the day and those things that were bothering you with bad sleep don't bother you. So if you are physically and mentally strong with good eating habits, your hormones are in good shape, your adrenals, your thyroid are all firing on most of the cylinders or all cylinders, you can just fly through the day where your previous self or other people will really struggle. And it's amazing to hear, for example, if a wife or a husband comes in and we fix those situations, he'll come in or she'll come in and say, you know what, my spouse says, I'm much nicer to be around. I'm actually remembering things that I'm supposed to. So we're getting along better, or my work is a lot easier. So when I come home, we feel everything. So there's all those things are compounded on top of each other. So you can have almost like a nice personality change when those things are handled.
I like the way Aaron says that. You could have a nice personality.
Right, because there could be some other things in there. But that goes for kids too, with their ability to think and to focus and to retain information. If you can get their blood sugar and their brain essentially fed properly, a lot of things that kids deal with can be handled because they're much more calm and centered, which means they can think better. And so that young child that might not be doing well at school and says they can't remember things and they have tough time studying, when you fix their diet and feed their brain and feed their organs and glands proper food, the child becomes a better student. They're easier to work with at home because they're not irritable all the time due to the fluctuating hormones or blood sugar or adrenal levels. And therefore, everyone in the family, of course, is happier too.
Well, but on the flip side of it, then instead they go to the doctor, they're diagnosed with ADHD because they can't sit and they can't focus, and then they're given medicine and they go down a whole different path. And then that's why we have like 60 to 70% of our children that are diagnosed with ADHD, right?
Correct. So if what you need to do first is do all the things possible, and if there's anything left over, then it might mean we need to look even deeper or make more changes or be more consistent way before taking what generally is considered the easier solution, which is to give the medication.
Yeah.
But if you give the medication, that young child may grow up into an adult with the same issues, and then not know why they don't do well at work, or why they can't do well in at college or a trade, because their original issue was never handled.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
I think one of the questions that I know a few people have to go. Connie just dropped off. She just sent me a message. How do people get a hold of you? At the in the chat box, if you haven't seen it, I put down Aaron's website page. Aaron, maybe you can. I know that you work with people at a distance as well. We do have, like, Connie's already messaged me and said, I'm coming to stay at your house. I'm going to see Aaron. I said, okay, no problem. We'll make it a ladies' night. But someone like Linda, and Linda, we're going to get to you. And Lisa's out in Colorado. And so if she wants the opportunity to work with you, mind you, Lisa, my house is always your house. So if ever you come for a visit to see Aaron, absolutely, you're welcome to stay here. But what's the best, in Lisa's situation, what's the best way to work, to be able to have a working relationship with you?
Well, there would be, I guess, two parts to that answer. One is, let's say, for example, when Lisa came to see me and we have that long case history that needs to be addressed, during the appointment, I would make the determination if the ability to work long distance and how often I could see Lisa would actually be the best option, or is option B, meaning connect Lisa with someone who has the exact same training and experience that hopefully would be near her, who could see, because it might mean seeing Lisa twice a week or once a week to get things moving. If I feel like I could do it long distance and we have enough of an understanding of how to do things, then if I felt comfortable, I would say, let's try working as a team. Or I might say, hey, I need to connect you with this person over here because you need a lot more attention than I can do long distance.
Yeah.
But either way, the result would be you would be able to work with someone who understands the entire body and how to address it rather than chase symptoms around and essentially play whack-a-mole.
But mind you,
handled and
yeah, but mind you, the healing process is a natural process. And what I love best about, and what I can contest to what Aaron's done, is that, when you're going through changes and you're trying to change your diet and you have certain cravings for certain foods, like maybe sugar or whatever it may be, or people that have a very high, carb diet because they crave like pastas and breads and things like that. The standard processed vitamins that he gives you, which is all dried foods that are either compressed in tablets or tablets, they're suppressing all of that stuff. So it makes it really easy for you to stick to, the lifestyle that, that you're changing and growing into.
Right, because if, let's say again, since we're talking about you, Lisa, let's say in this case, we do all the testing, and just as an example, let's say it does happen to be the liver that needs to be looked at. Well, one thing that would be done is the diet change, but the second thing that would be done, for example, with the standard processed supplements, is actually feeding you cellular material that comes from the liver to give you true replacement parts. So there are a lot of the standard processed supplements actually has the cellular extract. So it has the I guess you would call it the guts of the cells. in the food so that when you eat it, the body goes, hey, this is meant for liver. This is meant for the pancreas. And so the replacement parts will go to the liver, and the body has a better chance of regenerating the liver tissue than just trying to do the diet change. But you can't, usually you're gonna have to do both at the same time. But this way you can get more improvement faster. And sometimes, which is unfortunate, if the organ or gland is struggling to a certain degree, even really good diet, I'll have clients come in and say, I'm eating great. I don't understand why I still have this issue. Well, it's because they need more of what they can ever possibly eat. And there's a very good chance, let's say if someone has a pancreas issue, they're not going to go out and start eating pancreas. They're going to need something that has that in there already. And then the pancreas goes, okay, this was the kick I needed. And as long as you keep eating well, I can get healthy. And that's where specific attention with whole food supplements like Standard Process can get results where even if you eat the cleanest diet in the world, you could be stuck.
Well, and I think too, Aaron, one of the things that you had said on when you came on last month was that, the amount of nutritional support sometimes that we need by the time that they come to you is that their organ is in such a deficient state that no amount of good, clean food that they eat is really going to benefit. It'll do it. It may keep it at an okay state, but it's not going to give it the nutrition that it really needs in order to improve it.
Right. And so an example I use a nutritional bank account. So I guess you can see me. So if someone comes in and their nutritional bank account is up here, and then someone else comes in, let's say again for their liver, and then someone else comes in, but essentially their nutritional bank account is, I guess you can't really see my hand, is much, much lower, because the nutritional bank account is lower in that liver, and the liver has gone through more dramatic tissue change.
Yeah.
Because what happens with any organ as it begins to lose its ability to function, the tissue of the organ actually changes, the consistency of the tissue and the changes, and the structure can change, and the color of the organ can change. And so if someone comes in and let's say their pancreas has been beat up from 10 years of type 2 diabetes, there's going to be more work than even diet change might be able to handle without specific support than someone who comes in and says, I was just diagnosed, things just started to go off, and I've just been diagnosed with type 2 versus someone who's had it for 10 or 15 years.
Yeah.
That person with diet change and maybe a little assistance can get themselves on track a lot quicker than the other person. So it all depends on the damage that's been done to the organ through food or through outside sources like additives, preservatives, things that meant as treatments like medications, chemotherapy. Those all stack up over the years, which add more time and effort to improve a person's health. And that's why the diet is fantastic. And then you add in the specific support for the organs that are struggling the most, instead of trying to just handle everything at once or chase a symptom.
Makes sense. Total sense. I'm putting in the box again. I think it's there. Do you all see it? The link to the it's whncenter.com, so that you can connect. I know, Cassandra, you've got, if you look in your chat, I can go back and do it again.
I see it, it's there.
I'll post it again, maybe it'll come up for everyone. Oh, that's not it. Aaron, is there a phone number that you can give me that I can put in here as well, that people can call and set an appointment up?
Sure, it's 607
Yep.
239-5773.
Okay. And then, of course, the link is www.whcenter.com. Both of those. I know that a couple of people may have to check off as we're going a little bit longer than the hour, but I want to make sure we talk to Linda, because Linda was actually on the call the last time, and I'm praying that she doesn't have a sound problem. I just want to hear, Linda, if there's is there something that that you specifically want to talk to Aaron about? I'm not really sure what you have going on, or if there's something that he can assist you or help you with. Your sound. No sound.
Maybe the sound on the computer, the little sound key might not.
Maybe your volume. She tried last.
If you click your microphone, you might have to switch it from same as system to speaker/headphone, or the microphone area, the microphone array instead of same as system.
Linda, do you see on the bottom left-hand corner where your microphone is, there's a little arrow next to it? If you click on that, there's a bunch of stuff that should come up. It says select a speaker or.
I hear a little bit.
Oh, I hear you really, really quietly. Turn your.
Well, I don't.
Is there a specific question that you can put in the chat box for us that we can have Aaron answer for you? And maybe Linda, if you have any questions too, I'm sure if you call and make an appointment with Aaron as well, he'll take the time to answer a couple questions.
Oh, sure. Good.
I
thought I heard, no. But this way there won't be any sound problem if she calls.
Yeah, there won't be any sound problem if you call him, but does anybody else have any questions for him before we jump off? Lisa, you're good?
No, it looks like I probably
Lisa's got a lot of
answered most of them.
Yeah, I saw.
Where?
Go ahead.
I was just gonna say, where do you live, Lisa? What state?
Oh, I'm in Colorado. I live right by Denver International Airport.
Oh.
She's on there looking for a flight to come out, right?
Right.
Well, the good news is, let's say you were to come and we do the whole report and check everything. If it looks like that you would need much more attention than I could do long distance, Colorado should have several practitioners who I might be able to refer you to.
We have a lot.
Good.
So in the Linda's posting, I was tested for vitamin B. I don't know what her symptoms are as to why she was tested. I just asked her. And I was told I have too much B6, tingling in the tips of her fingers and toes.
Too much B6.
What does B6 have to do with the tingling of fingers in her toes and her fingers?
Well, I have to say that's the first time I've heard too much B6. Usually it's not enough.
Huh.
So sometimes when I hear something like that, the first thing I always ask is if I could see the blood work, because sometimes I have found that one, it's not translated properly to the patient, and two, there might be a problem in what was translated correctly from doctor or nurse to patient to me. So I like to see it when something doesn't make sense to me.
Yeah.
B6 doesn't make sense in the sense that B6 is very important for nerve health, which means that if you had enough B6, generally you're not going to have any tingling or nervous issue. So I would love to see the blood work to be able to answer that better. Back to the balance.
So were you having problems with your balance, Linda? Yeah, so she was having problems with her balance. She fell. She went to a neuro doctor. They tested her for vitamin B because they felt that her vitamin B may have been off. And now they're saying that she has too much. And Aaron just said too much caused tingling. I would think just the opposite.
Well, no, too much wouldn't cause tingling. I would love to see the blood work to actually be able to answer this question better.
Okay.
Because generally B vitamins are healthy and needed for proper nerve function. And they're what's called water soluble, so they don't tend to build up in the body like vitamin A or vitamin D. They tend to be excreted at a faster rate. So I would love to see that. I guess the question would be is, did they do anything for that? And if they did it work? Because that would tell me if.
How are they treating it?
Because it's hard to have too much B6. That's very, very hard to do.
Aaron,
unless you're taking a big supplement.
Yeah, Aaron, give me your email address.
Okay, it's my first name, Aaron, Aaron, at whncenter.com.
So said to quit the vitamin B6. So that's it.
So, I mean, it is possible if you were taking a lot of B6 that you could have been overdoing it.
Just one a day.
But it would be interesting because sometimes those one a days have like 2,000%.
Yeah, 2,000 milligrams or something.
Right, and that could overload and essentially decrease or put stress on other B vitamins. So it could be possible, now that I see what's happening, that you could have taken one that had a very high amount of B6 that decreased like your folic acid and put pressure on those, and then that would cause the tingling because your folic acid or folate might have decreased enough to where you got nerve issues. And then you stop taking the B6 and then it evens out.
Well, the interesting thing though, I find out, Linda, were you taking B6 because you were getting dizzy? Is that what they gave you as a?
Just taking it?
Just taking
Okay.
it. Yeah.
Yeah.
So
Go ahead.
I think a good thing for you would be, Linda, is I posted Aaron's email address in the box here in the chat. If you copy that and paste it, and are able to get your blood work, send Aaron an email saying that you were on the crazy Zoom call with Gina out of Pennsylvania. He'll remember who you are, and then maybe you can start a conversation, and maybe there's something there that Aaron can do or connect you or, and help you from that point. Because I mean, dizziness could be a lot of things.
Right. So I'd also, if you still have it, the name, or you could take a picture of the B6 supplement that you were taking. So I can see what the daily percent was.
So they're doing physical therapy as a means of helping the dizziness, which to me doesn't make sense.
No, and so how long ago did you quit the B6?
Today, she said.
Oh, today. All right, so there's not going to be enough time to see a change.
But still, if you've got dizziness, I mean, there's like so many other things, that could be causing the dizziness, not necessarily the B6, right?
Right.
The two don't go together.
But there could be, like always, there could be an overlapping of maybe the too much B6 is showing to be a little bit more of a problem because there's something else that's going on. If that other thing wasn't going on, then maybe you would just have the tingling, but not the dizziness.
Yeah.
But it's good that you're going to physical therapy to have stronger muscles to help just general balance.
Yeah. Aaron, I know, right? Well, ladies, you've definitely put Aaron to the test. I love it. Woo!
Yes, I had to think. I appreciate it.
At the end of the day, we're giving you some really powerful questions there, but I'm glad Cassandra came on. I'm glad she's going back on Friday. Have no fear, Aaron, I will hog tie her if I have to and throw her in the car and bring her on Friday. Cassandra's one of those women that
great.
Not to put themselves first.
And I see that a lot. And what's good, because there's that, as you put yourself first now, you won't be, a lot of clients will come to see me in their 40s, 50s, and 60s, particularly women will say, well, I've never put myself first, and I'm and I'm run down, and now they're finally willing to do that or able to do it. But that's, 10 to 30 years of less than optimal health. So you won't fall into that category.
Yes.
Gina will make sure.
I
Sure.
think MP's really excited to ride in Nana G's car, so
Oh, good.
he's gonna be dragging me too.
Nice. And Lisa, again, there you have the contact numbers for Aaron. You want to try to continue that conversation with him, find out, the best approach if there's someone near you, or if you need to come out for that initial consultation. I've done it before where people have come in and they've stayed with me, and Aaron has worked long-term relationships with them. So have no fear. My house is your home. Same thing with you, Linda. You've already been there. So you're welcome to come back anytime if you need to. But yeah, Aaron, I just want to say thank you again for coming. And, these are all professional women, not only women, but moms, and, have, some really big challenges. And sometimes they don't know who to turn to get really good answers. And as you can see in the medical field, it's kind of like, who do you believe?
Mm-hmm.
And what I like best about Aaron is that it's so simple, it's so inexpensive, and it's so adaptable and treatable, and you start to see the immediate results. It takes only but a days, for your body start to change. So it's really cool.
Yeah, it's nice when you can improve health without resorting to drastic measures, which is typical, which are surgeries, heavy medication,
Yeah.
things like that, which are the standard approach nowadays, which is unfortunate. But once you know how to take control of your own health and how to work on your symptoms through specific nutritional approaches, you can not only help yourself, but then you can take other people aside and say, all right, let me talk to you. This is what you need to do. And then they can have at least they have the opportunity to take advantage of it.
Well, and
Yeah.
as you get healthier, the people in your family get healthier. I know that is for me, right? Because if I'm cooking a certain way for me, this isn't a diner. Everyone's going to eat what I'm eating. Sorry.
I like that. I'm going to have to use that with some clients who struggle with that concept.
Yeah, no, if I've got to get healthier, then everybody else is going to get healthier, because in reality, everyone's going to have better personality. They're going to feel better. They're going to look better. They won't have all those emotional highs and lows from the sugars and the carbs. And we just had my whole family in for the weekend, and I made chicken pot pie, and I made homemade crust across the top. And it was interesting to see, I made 2 pot pies. One had homemade crust that was no carbs, and the other one was like the Pillsbury pie crust from the supermarket. And that whole pie crust that was all organic and natural, that one was gone. And I was like, yeah, my family's getting it. And why? Because they feel better, because they're eating healthier. And then only half of the other one was gone. So that was good to know. But the guts were the same, everything inside the guts. So I didn't use, I used the tapioca flour in order to thicken the sauce, the chicken broth and stuff like that. So everything inside of it was vegan in a sense, or not vegan, but was healthy for you. It was just the pie crusts were different.
Different, yeah.
Yeah.
And usually the more health conscious the food, the better it tastes, because you have real flavor.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
Well, Aaron, I want to thank you again. We'll see. We'll talk to Missy. We'll try and get you on. I was thinking about, talking about cholesterol.
Oh, that would be a good one.
Yeah,
Yeah.
maybe next month, because I remember when I came to you and talked to you about my cholesterol, and that the numbers that they say what they are not really what they are. And
Exactly.
we don't want to tell them about that now. They'll have to come back next month and talk to us.
Yeah, that would be a very good topic, because most people will find essentially that the world has changed when you realize the role of cholesterol from what they say versus what it really is.
Yes, exactly. And I remember when you educated me on that. So it's wonderful. Linda, you're very welcome. I just saw your message. Thank you, Gina and Aaron, for the Zoom. You're very welcome. Thank you, everyone, for coming. Aaron, it's been a pleasure. Hopefully, you've got some new clients there.
Yeah, and I thank everyone for your time, and thank again, Gina, for having me. I appreciate it.
Yeah, no worries. All right, everyone. Have a wonderful
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Thanks.
You guys have a great evening.
You
See
too.
you
Bye-bye.
Friday.
All right, bye. Yes.